I have nothing more to say about bicep tender tears. But you know what? I made a PowerPoint and I come again with better evidence and better made case. So, in this video we'll focus on the question, what causes bicep tendon rupture? Okay. And to make this scientific as possible, we are gonna look up the scientific theory definition from Wikipedia. A scientific theory is an explanation of an aspect of the natural world that can be or that has been repeatedly tested and has corroborating evidence in accordance with the scientific method using accepted protocols of observation, measurements, and evaluation of results. Okay, so note that we have here or. So it can be tested and it has corroborating evidence, meaning evidence that support it. Good. Now we know what this scientific theory is, and I will now present to you my scientific theory, which is a full extended R in the supinated position increases the risk of distal bicep tendon rupture. Here we have the distal bicep tendon. It's connected to the radius bone, and the rupture I'm talking about is this coming off of this radius bone. Okay, and now this is my theory, and I have two explanations of mechanisms why this happens in the extended arm position when the hand is supinated, meaning palm up. So we are gonna look at the first one now. First explanation is this. When the arm is in the supinated position, the radius bone, being this, is more down than when the arm is in the pronated position, or even in the neutral position. Because as you can see from the image, now in the pronated position, the radius bone is over the ulna bone, meaning that it is higher because it is over it. Okay, so what this does is it allows the bicep to not be so extended, whereas it's here the bicep is even more extended. Hence, it is more prone to tear, come off this radius bone in this position. So this is my first theory, or explanation of my theory. Mechanism of action. Why this happens. Then, second theory, or the explanation of the theory, we need to look more closely this radius bone. And here is the radius bone more closely, and we have to observe this knob. Here is a knob, and the knob has a name, radial tuberosity. That's its name, but we are just gonna call it knob. And here, the same knob, you can see it here. Here is the palm is now in a supinated position, palm up, and the knob is here. Let's look at closely the knob. Here we have the hand in a supinated position, neutral position, and pronated position. And look at the knob. We are going to take a closer look even more. Here. Look at the knob in the supinated position. It's here. It's pointing there. There. Let me draw it. Points there. Here, neutral position, the knob points there. Here, in the pronated position, the knob points down. What this tells us is that since the bicep attaches to this knob, in neutral position and pronated position, the knob is not optimally placed, which I theorized is built into the nervous system of your body to signal your nervous system not to fire the bicep maximally in these positions, and hence in these positions the bicep is protected by the nervous system because it is not allowed to fire maximally, hence causing its own coming off of the bone. Whereas in this position, supinated position, and elbow fully extended, straight arm position, this knob is optimally placed, and the nervous system tells your body, go ahead, fire that bicep maximally. And now you have your arm fully extended, and you have load into your hand, and you do that, and nothing happens, and it comes off. So, these are my two explanations of why my theory is true, mechanisms of action, and now we can close look at them together here. Theory is full extended arm into supinated position increases the risk of distal bicep tendon rupture, meaning the bicep tendon coming off the radial bone. Explanation why, when arm is fully extended and the hand supinated, the radius bone is at its lowest and hence the bicep at its longest. And that is what causes it. The explanation 2, when arm is fully extended and hand supinated and the bicep tendon attachment point upward, which allows the nervous system to contract the bicep maximally in this dangerous position, and hence the bicep itself causes its own coming off of the bone, because it is allowed to contract so maximally in that very dangerous position. So this is my scientific model to understand this injury. And now we are going to listen what is Mike Israetel competing scientific theory of this injury.
The only one I was thinking of was on preacher curls. I don't know, like on the bottom there. That's where I'm like, I have to be very careful because I think that's quite I've heard of people kind of ripping things within their, I guess the tendons within the elbow there. That's where you have to really control that.
Almost all of that is because you're using way too much weight. But at the bottom of a preacher curl, because when you lock out your elbows completely, when the bicep shortens, it actually pulls bone into bone, which isn't bad. But in order to overcome this, the fulcrum there is really short for the bicep because it's laying flat. So it's kind of like if you close a door by its door handle, you're like, okay, it's easy, it's closing a door. Try grabbing the door really close to the hinges and closing it. You're like, have to exert a ton of force to get it going. So sometimes if you're using even a decent technique and a decent amount of weight, if you completely lock out your joint with the bicep on the bottom of a preacher curl, it might be a huge amount of force your bicep has to exert at a very stretched position to even get your bone to get your joint to go this at all. Now, as soon as it does this, the bicep gets a huge mechanical advantage, and the rest is much easier. But that bottom, at the very least, has to be very well controlled. And if it's really just hurting a ton at the bottom and your elbow joints start hurting because of the bone compression, you got to maybe cut the ROM just a little bit so that you don't come down all the way to full lockout. Maybe you come down to like here. There's a difference here and here and here and here, right? Come down to here and you're fine. Come down to here and it just hurts your joints a lot. So
that makes complete sense.
It's a very good point you bring up.
Cool. Let's get to the next question.
So now we have two competing theories, which we can then compare. My theory being cause is full extended arm into supinated position. Of course, this assumes that there is some type of load. It's not just an empty ham without any resistance. I'm assuming you understand that the context is some type of a load. Cause in his theory, Mike's theory, too much weight. Looking back at what we read on the Wikipedia about the scientific theory, we were supposed to find, or I was supposed to find, corroborating evidence. And that is what I have compiled for you. Corroborating evidence, we are gonna next look from bodybuilding, gymnastic, powerlifting, and from arm wrestling. And little warning here, now we are gonna look at injuries. So if you don't wanna see injuries, you might not wanna look this. So first, corroborating evidence from the bodybuilding. Let the evidence roll. Arm in fully extended position, hand supinated. Again, arm fully extended position, hand supinated. And here we have again, arm fully extended, hand supinated. And in this case, again, arm fully extended, hand supinated. But also what is interesting in this video is that he doesn't use a lot of weight, but the bicep still goes off. So, think about what Mike Israetel said. Uses way too much weight. Does it look like this man was using way too much weight? Doesn't look like to me. He was repping it quite easily. But the bicep still tore off because the arm was fully extended in a supinated position, just like my theory says. Next, corroborating evidence from gymnastics. Let the evidence roll. Hand in fully extended position, wrist supinated. Hand in fully extended position, wrist supinated. And hand in fully extended position, wrist supinated. And finally, hand in fully extended position, wrist supinated. Are you starting to see the pattern? Let's continue. Then, corroborating evidence from powerlifting. Let the evidence roll. Arm fully extended, wrist in supinated position. Hand fully extended, arm in a supinated position. Arm fully extended, wrist in a supinated position. And arm fully extended, hand in supinated position. And finally, arm extended, hand in supinated position. And then corroborating evidence from arm wrestling. Evidence roll. Hand in a fully extended position, wrist in supinated position. Arm in a fully extended position, wrist in supinated position. Arm fully extended, wrist supinated. And finally, arm extended, wrist supinated. Okay. So, what could be the common denominator of all of these bicep injuries across all of these 4 different sports? Bodybuilding, powerlifting, arm wrestling, gymnastics. What could be the common denominator of the same bicep injury that we observe in all of these sports? Could it be the arm fully extended in a supinated position? That's just my theory. But before we conclude, I want us to take again look at what Mike Israetel said in his video, because I think he said something very important in his video before we go to observe and critique his own theory. Let's listen again, little section from the video.
The only one I was thinking of was on preacher curls. I don't know, like on the bottom there. That's where I'm like, I have to be very careful because I think that's quite I've heard of people kind of ripping things within their, I guess the tendons within the elbow there. That's where you have to really control that.
Almost all of that is because you're using way too much weight.
Did you hear it? Almost all. So Mike Israetel, according to his own words, acknowledges that you can tear that bicep off in that exercise even if you use light weights, because it's almost all because you use too heavy weights. So in some cases, you just tear your bicep off when it's lightweight. And he fully acknowledges it, but still is like, yeah, get that 0.5% more of those gains. It's totally worth of that bicep there. Yes. Makes total sense. Makes total sense. Not. But let's observe further, critique what he said. Okay, this was Mike's theory. Way too much weight causes the bicep rupture in almost all of the cases. Note, almost all of the cases. So in some cases, it's just lightweight can tear it off too. But I guess you should still do the exercise. Makes no sense, but okay. And note the wording. Way too much weight. Too much. Does it sound scientific to say too much? Note that it's circular reasoning. It's circular reasoning. Because let's make this thought experiment here. You go on and do that exercise with, let's say, 10 kilo dumbbell, and you tear your bicep off, and then you call Mike. Hey Mike, I tore my bicep off doing that preacher curl, like you said. And then Mike is like, how much weight you did use? 10 kilos. Well, it was too much. And then you're like, how do you know, Mike, it was too much? Because it tore your bicep off. Well, thanks, Mike. Well, I guess if you follow Mike Israetel, Mike teaches you to find what is too much weight by the weight tearing your bicep off. So at least you learn something from Mike. You learn what's your biceps limits of being torn off. Like, do you understand that if you do that exercise, you will get stronger in it? So gradually you have to add more weight. So if your bicep will tear, let's say in 25 kilos, that 25 kilos will someday come that you will load the dumbbell with that 25 kilos, thinking it is lightweight for you. And then naps went your bicep, and then you go, hey Mike, I did the exercise like you told me to, and I don't have a bicep anymore. And Mike is like, yeah, it means that you use too much weight. Well, thanks, Mike. Now I know what my limit is. Oh boy, you guys. It's so wonderful that we have this science-based training these days, because it makes so much scientific sense, because it teaches you what is the tendon strength you have to that bone attachment. If anything else, that you learn that, and then you can have a bicep reattachment. So you lost all your gains. That that 1% more gains that you think you got from it, it's totally worth tearing your bicep at some point. Okay, so let's look at our scientific theories here. Comparing theories. His theory, too much weight in almost all of the cases. So not always. You can still theory it lightweight, but let's. Okay. That was his scientific theory. My theory was, well, fully extended arm in the supinated position causes the bicep very likely to tear. Strength of my theory. Explain corroborating evidence from bodybuilding, gymnastics, powerlifting, and arm wrestling. What are the strength of Mike's theory? None. Relies on circular and post hoc reasoning, both of which are pseudoscientific. So, I'm gonna tell you this very slowly now, guys, so that you can understand this. If somebody attaches the word science in something that they are promoting, that does not make it scientific. Okay? Just because somebody calls their training model science-based training, it doesn't make it scientific. And you know also what, guys? Even though somebody quotes science papers, it doesn't make their stuff scientific. Do you think that exercise scientists and coaches never quoted science paper before Mike Israetel and Jeff Nippard came along? Hello? Do you think that nobody quoted science papers? Nobody based their training methods into studies? Right? Is that what you believe? Yeah, but dude, Mike has a PhD. So if I just make up some bullshit, I put the word science into it, and then I hire a PhD guy to be in my crew, and then I quote some random science papers, then that's science. Is that science? Right? Is that how low the bar now is? Like, you are allowed to think for yourself, right? You are allowed to think for yourself. And just because there is a couple science papers which concludes something about sun muscles in the extended position loading, extrapolating that to all the muscles in the body is not science. Totally excluding sport injury science is not science. Like what I have gone over here, like this is not new information. Like, people have noticed this before I noticed it. And if these in quotation mark science-based training people would know scientific literature, they would be aware of this. They would not base everything on one or two papers, because that's not science. All right? And like I have hard time not to come to the conclusions that these science-based guys, training guys, would intentionally want you to tear your bicep. Like, it's very hard not to come to that conclusion, because how can somebody has a PhD in sports science and not understand that the fully extended supinated position for the arm is heavily prone to injury of the bicep tendon? Like, how can you not know it? So much so that you promote like Jeff Nippard promote this flat bench bicep curl. Like movement which is engineered perfectly to detach that bicep from that bone. Oh my god, guys. Okay. I think I'm done here. You can draw your own conclusions from this. Which you think was better scientific model of what is going on with the bicep tearing? Is it Mike's model? Too much weight in almost all of the cases, so not always. Or is it my case? Fully extended arm in the supinated position, assuming there is load. Which has better corroborating evidence for it? Okay? And which is better testable? You know? You could make an easy test for this. You could make a model of the arm and put there some kind of tendon reenactment thing and look in which position it tears easiest. Or you could just look at data, accumulated data on the science bases which track injuries and see what was happening when the injury happened. You could easily test this model. Note that Mike's model has the word too much. It's a subjective word. It cannot be quantified. Like, don't you think there was a reason when Jeff Nippard told you to use lightweight for him not telling you in what rep range it is safe?
I was doing these for a while as a high-rep finisher, but I found myself gravitating back toward the standard 45-degree preacher curl lately. I find you just hit a wall with your progression on these because you're limited to light weights and high reps.
Don't you think there was a reason for it? Like, why did not Jeff Nippard say that you can do this exercise safely if you use weights in which you can do 20 repetitions? Why do you think Jeff Nippard did not say that? I can tell you why. Because of liability. Because if you would then do a movement, if you would then use a weight by which you can do, let's say, 25 repetitions, and you still tear your bicep, you could sue him. But he knows you will tear your bicep on the exercise. So he just used the subjective terms. Use light weights without defining what is lightweight. So he avoids liability when you go on and listen him and tear that bicep off. Which you will do because you will get stronger on it. And when you get stronger on it, you will find out what was too much weight. Because that weight will tear that bicep tendon off. Okay, I guess we are done here. Like the video, subscribe, comment. Bye.
Of those psychological implications, which ones have you suffered with the most?
Decrease in fluid intelligence, for sure. Radical increases in anxiety. Radical increases in aggression. I pride myself on never losing my cool. I've never screamed at anyone. I've never gotten physical with anyone. But the ideas in my head that tell me to do things tell me to do unspeakable things.
Like what?
They're unspeakable. I'd have to speak them. You really want to know?
Mm-hmm.
I'm also fucking weird, so just remember that.
No, we're all a bit weird.
Most people probably don't have this severity, but I'll read a comment on social media directed at me, I guess, about me. That's from nameless, faceless profile. And I begin to fantasize about what it would be like and how much sublime pleasure I would receive in hurting that person at a deep physical and emotional level. Badly. Hurting them in such a way that they're never going to walk right again and they're always going to remember me and how they dared to cross me.